are listening to Flop Culture, a podcast that explores what it means to flop in the realm of popular culture. My name's Fionnuala. I hope you're really well. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. But we're not here to talk about last week. We're here to talk about this week and a flop that might undo the entire premise of this podcast. I can already hear you because you've read the title. You now think this podcast is a farce because this week's flop is about The Dark Knight Rises. But the reason why we've chosen it is because The Dark Knight Rises, it's a curious case because how do you follow up the biggest film in the world ever, even still to this day after more than 10 years? The Dark Knight Rises was obviously a major financial success, grossing over $1 billion worldwide and making more money than its predecessor, The Dark Knight. But the sequel is often criticised, from the plot to pacing to the show's centre villain, Bane, played by Tom Hardy. Here to staunchly defend The Dark Knight Rises is founder of Black and Irish, Femi Bankole. Enjoy. Femi Bankole, you are so welcome to Flop Culture. How are you?
I am excellent, chilling, feeling good, really excited to come on here.
Chilling like a villain, maybe, considering our topic today, which I'm just going to get this out of the way, right? Because I know people are going to see The Dark Knight Rises. People have seen The Dark Knight Rises as a film and as a title of a podcast episode now, and they're immediately going to go, "But this isn't a flop," and they're like, "Fionnuala doesn't even understand the concept of her own podcast." To which I say, "Fuck you, I can do what I want." But I thought you suggested this, I will say, but I actually thought it was an interesting suggestion because no, it wasn't a flop in the sense that it made boatloads of money, which we'll talk about. Critically, generally beloved. But I think for some people, comparatively, within the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, it's maybe seen as like the weakest link. So I thought that was an interesting viewpoint to take. What is your kind of earliest memory of this film? Were you opening weekend? I was opening weekend, I'm pretty sure, watching it, like very much hyped for this film.
No, I wasn't opening weekend, but I remember it's one of those that like we watched over and over again with the family kind of thing. I remember like sitting there, my parents being like, "Oh my God, this is like actually deadly." And I think the villain in this one is probably like the first film character I ever fell in love with.
Okay.
Because I was just there like, "Oh my God, yeah, like you're actually like horrible and menacing." And I was like, deadly.
I love you, you big freak.
Yeah, it's like, you know when you're watching like superhero movies, whatever, and like the bad guy is just like, it's like, oh, come on, like do something horrible or whatever. And like they're a bit more considerate. Yeah. He was the first one I was like, oh yeah, like he knows how to be a bad guy, you know?
Interesting. Okay. Would you consider yourself a big like superhero head, Batman head in general?
Yes, like I love fantasy, I love superhero movies. Not so much recently.
Okay.
I think I'd be one of those that have been like jaded by the whole like Marvel cinematic, all that kind of MCU, whatever it's been called. And I think like, was it maybe like Endgame 2, Endgame, whatever it was?
Endgame, Attack of the Clones, whatever.
Yeah,
again,
whatever.
I'm not the person to ask because I'm not a huge superhero person anyway, and I had fatigue, even not being a superhero person. So
yeah, which is really sad because like I think like after like the last good one, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I just been like loads of them still just be churned out. I was like, I actually can't keep up, and I was almost like forcing myself to watch them to keep up with them, and I was like, I'm starting to hate this. So like I am very big into superhero movies, just not so much recently.
Okay, but Batman, is Batman a fave for you?
Batman, don't ask the question why, but oh my God, I'm actually not going to say this.
Well, are you about to rat on yourself or someone else?
No, I was going to say like I had like a nickname back in college that was around Batman. That's all I said. I won't give the details. Okay. I literally actually, because it was my...
Shout out to everyone who went to college with Femi. It's safe in that knowledge.
Yes. And don't bring it up anywhere.
I will be DMing you after this, college friends.
It was my 30th recently, and I was going back through
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I was going back to the archives looking up photos. And there's a photo about at least 10 years ago of me in a popular pub in Dublin in a Batman mask. That's all I'm going to say. So like, it's like he's one of my favorite superheroes.
One of your favorites. Okay, so let's go back first then to The Dark Knight, because there is no Dark Knight Rises without The Dark Knight. I know Batman Begins at the start, but I mean, Well, actually, let's go back there.
Let's go back.
Were you right into it then with that franchise, with this new iteration of Christian Bale, Batman Begins, that first film? Did you come a little bit later?
So I would have watched all of them as they came out.
Okay.
But I wasn't, it was almost like I wasn't into them until The Dark Knight Rises. And then I would have gone back and rewatched them retrospectively, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would have, they were all the rage back then, especially with kind of like the dark, gritty, kind of like Christopher Nolan kind of like production and direction. So, like, yeah, would have been engaged from the start. But retrospectively, which is actually, I think, is good sometimes, especially when you have movies that are like, again, respectively, like old. It's good when you go back. I know it's not old, but it is old.
Yeah, I mean, it's over 10 years old now at this point. Yeah.
It's always good because sometimes you go back retrospectively, like, oh, I was watching that. It's like, oh, that was actually like shy. Don't know, can you curse on this?
You can curse. That
was actually shy.
Well, no, yeah, you're watching something back and you're like, this didn't age well. Whereas, like, with this franchise and particularly the Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, I don't think any of it has aged particularly badly, in my opinion, even from like an FX perspective or anything like that. It still looks like it's kind of timeless in a way.
Absolutely. It was the magic of it. And I remember it was just like over the last couple of weeks, I was going back watching all three movies. And I was just looking at it and I was like, oh my God, like I actually got excited watching them again. And you know, sometimes you get excited watching them with storylines. Oh, this doesn't match. I was like, no. This is like equally as good. It was really funny actually, because obviously my whole argument and concept is around, you know, I think The Dark Knight Rises is better than Dark Knight. And I started watching The Dark Knight like the first hour. And I was like, oh my God, is this going to be like, I'm actually going to have to like change my opinion on this?
You text me, hey, can we cancel?
Can we actually cancel? Because I might have to make a tit of myself. But it just shows actually like how good and timeless the movies are, the performances are, and also like the story. I think in a lot of kind of like modern superhero movies, they usually have like a very kind of guessable story with all their guessable cadence. It's like, I know what's going to happen kind of thing. But this, even like watching it back again, the underlying message of it is so strong. And given the type of society that we actually live in as well, is also will be like consistently timeless, because it's always kind of like, you know, the rich taking advantage of the poor, and it's like the poor have had enough, and that leads to like different bits of crime, and some hero, not necessarily a hero in like obviously in the real world because they don't exist. Maybe they do. But you know, someone coming through and kind of like breaking that trend and resetting again. And I always feel like that kind of a story is always relevant. Like.
Yeah, there was a positive review of this film that I think noted it as like it's what makes it good is that it's a superhero film without any obviously Batman is a superhero in like the direct definition of the term, but he's complicated. Like that's what makes this so intriguing, I suppose. I remember when I first watched it and just like fully buying into the hype and being like really, really excited, but also thinking there's no way they'll top The Dark Knight from even a performance perspective, a story perspective. You obviously have like the legacy of Heath Ledger and the late Heath Ledger like looming over that film as well. And it was intended that the Joker story was going to carry on into this next film. So you're kind of thinking, how the fuck are they going to do it? And I remember leaving the cinema and being like, no, they did. Like they did. I'm absolutely satisfied where they brought this story. What happens in The Dark Knight Rises? Where do we find Batman? What's going on?
So Batman, I'm trying to remember now. It's like I watched it last night.
This is slightly complicated. So like if you don't hit every beat, it's fine. But essentially it's 8 years after The Dark Knight.
Yes.
He's after taking the rap from Harvey Dent. Harvey Dent is dead.
Yes.
He's retired as Batman. When lo and behold, another bad fella's back. He has to come out of retirement. I mean, essentially. That's it, right?
Yes, that's pretty much it. He's, I think at the very start, he goes for like a checkup with the doctor or so, and he's like, mate, like your knees, the cartilage in your knees are gone.
I kind of appreciate that as well. He's a bit fucked in this iteration, you know what I mean? Like he needs physio, like he's just in bits.
Physio, he's new knees, mate. He's in bits. And that kind of like makes it like really interesting, right? Because almost if you think back to like to The Dark Knight itself, okay, clearly, obviously, Batman is way physically more imposing to the Joker. He can snap him in half straight away. But the biggest aspect of this was the psychological battle and the psychological warfare and the absolute unhingedness, sorry, that's the word, of the Joker,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of come back to this here and you see like, right, Batman is not physically broken. He's clearly still mentally broken, and he's just had enough in the sense of, one, I think, based off the Harvey Dent Act in the last one, there's actually no crime left in Gotham.
Yeah.
The streets are clean. The police are being like, here, there's actually like nothing for us to do. But it's almost as if Batman at this point is a victim of his own success, because although there wasn't any kind of or crime, it led to like everything kind of going underground.
Yeah.
Like figuratively and the opposite of figuratively.
Yeah.
I'm speaking. So I think, what's his name? What do you call him? I won't call him Robin, but his name's not Robin. But Robin.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, that he's like the like rookie cop, and his like biological name is Robin.
Yes.
I will say that when that happened in the end, I was like, for fuck, okay, Chris, we know you to get in there somewhere. But
I was actually so disappointed there is no follow-on from this, because I would have loved him as a Robin. I think he would have made like.
I was going to ask that in a later question, but we'll answer it now. Like, could you ever see them picking up that story in a way where it's like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is like that Robin character? What would that film even look like? I'm not really sure.
It might be a bit too late, but
Yeah.
I think the Robin character for me is the most kind of like fascinating one. And I think obviously there's been like other kind of like Robin characters in popular cinema. I think there was a what was it called now? Teen Titans, something Titans on Netflix show that was Ryan Robin as well.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, and that was, even though like you're meant to hate it, was actually like really good. But I think having like a Robin in Christopher Nolan's universe, in which he, like, you know, you alluded back to it at the start, you know, the kind of the great thing about like the Joker or even like Batman and Bane to a certain extent is that like they're superheroes or villains, but they're not, in a sense of it's almost like an everyday person can attain what they have.
Exactly. Like, it's not really about like quote unquote powers per se, or like fucking multiverses or shit like that. It's very good versus evil, but not even as like binary or black and white as that. It's like, you know, like Bruce Wayne has all this money and he's dealing with his own like trauma and all that shit, and then you've all these horrible villains that have come from their own traumas, and you're kind of trying to deal with the government and everything in between, and everyone has their own agendas. Like it's a real world story in as much, but just dressed up with these characters.
Yeah, and it's almost like I always see like if I had enough money coupled with my trauma, like I could become Batman.
Truly.
You know what I mean?
Any wealthy donors want to get in touch, it's helloflopculture@gmail.com. I don't know who I would be, but I'd be happy for you to be Batman. Absolutely.
Do you know what? I posed this question to myself earlier on. Don't ask why. I don't know what goes on in my head. And it was like, who would I actually rather be if I was to be super villain? Like Bane or Joker.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And although like my favorite character is Bane, I feel like I prefer to be Joker, because it's just like, this man is fully normal, but not normal as like fully unhinged and chaotic. And there was a quote, I think I wrote it down. He talks about how society is so structured, but you inject a bit of chaos into it and everyone goes crazy. And I was like,
yeah.
Let's fucking do that.
But that's the thing. The Joker's haven't been a crack with it. Like, Bane is like, I do like Bane, and I found it like he is so imposing on screen. And I think what Tom Hardy brings to that role is just like, it's really frightening in a different physical way, especially in that, like, the fight scenes and the fight choreography in this film, unbelievable. Like that initial sewer scene where he is like pummeling Christian Bale, who was already pushing, I don't know, like 80, 90 kg at this point, like again, built like a brick shithouse, coming up against an even bigger fucking brick shithouse, and he's just it's so unbelievably satisfying, because there is that threat of like, oh fuck, like Batman has physically met his match. Like, how is he ever going to overcome this? Like,
yeah, and I think there's more layers to it than that, right?
Okay.
So, and this is part of the reason why Bane's my favorite, right? So when we're talking about Batman and Joker, it's like psychological. Okay, he's like, Joker's like, I'm gonna play into your ego of wanting to be like, I don't kill people and I always want to do the right thing, and I'm gonna use that against you.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas Bane has the physicalities. Bane has the intelligence. Bane is extremely intelligent. If you even like some of the scenes within film, where you're at the stock exchange, or when you're talking about the nuclear bomb or the fusion atom bomb, whatever one of them yokes.
If you think I'm going to correct you, babe, you've come to this is not a science podcast.
But then even further than that as well, the psychological warfare, right? Because in my opinion, right, the reason why, because obviously I didn't, obviously spoiler alert.
We can spoil, yeah, spoiler. Shocker, Batman saves the day. Can you believe it?
Batman beats Bane. So
Yeah.
which in a sense means that like Batman was always physically able to overpower him and beat him up, right? But if you remember when kind of like Batman is coming back, Alfred is being like, I'm afraid for you. Don't do this.
Yeah.
Batman gets beaten up because he's like, oh, you know, you think darkness is your ally and all this kind of shit. And he's like, you're channeling the wrong things. He gets thrown in the pit. He's dead at the very bottom of the pit. He's, you know, whatever happens, he's trying to like build himself back up again. And he's like, oh, I'm really angry and whatever, and trying to jump. He's like, no. Basically what happens is Bane has more control at the start over his fear. He knows what he's afraid of. He understands his limits, whereas Batman has a false perception almost mentally. He's at like a mental deficit to where Bane is. And as the movie kind of like goes on, Bane stays the same, whatever kind of like his mental state is, and Batman fully kind of, yes, his body kind of like regenerates again or whatever, but it doesn't really, like he's gone back from a broken back. You know, only regenerates as much as he can.
The scene where he's in the hole and your man in the hole is just absolutely lashing the shit out of him. I was like, this is crazy, but okay, Christopher Nolan, I trust you.
Yeah, and I'm also not sure like the best way to heal from a broken back is to be propped up
By a rope. Like it's
I was watching that back and I was like, wait, hold on a second.
It's crazy.
This actually makes no sense whatsoever. I was like, wait, I have a broken back. I've been on my back for, I don't know, a couple of weeks laying down. And this man is going to put me in a little rope, hold me up.
Put me in a trapeze.
Trapeze, punch my vertebrae back in. And be like, I'm going to leave you here until you start walking. And then like
where's his spin-off? Where's that man's spin-off?
I'm like, wait, what? And then like a couple of weeks later, like you're walking and then doing like 6 million push-ups. I'm like, wait, what?
Crazy.
Did they just like solve modern medicine? Because I don't know what's going on here. Sorry. Anyways, back to the point I was trying to make is that I think that we have kind of like physical intelligence and kind of like mental warfare that Bane is able to use as his weapons against Batman. And Batman, although he does obviously overcome him at the end, I don't think he's ever come across someone that was able to match him in every single ember of it, you know? And that for me is just like, oh my God, yes. And also, even if you further look at further kind of like analyze Bane, he almost has a bit of the anti-hero factor to him. Sorry, not a bit, like a lot.
Okay.
Actually, a lot actually, right? Because we can break into two parts, right? We can break it down into kind of, you know, what he's professing in terms of why he wants to like get rid of Gotham, you know, the same old like Ra's al Ghul's message, blah, blah, blah. Like, you guys are a bunch of pricks and we need to like destroy Gotham.
Yeah.
And I want to give Gotham back to the people and the whole reckoning. Kind of gives like Thanos vibes a little bit, right? But also, like, there's a couple of redeeming qualities to him in terms of his relationship with, what's her name? Talia al Ghul. Obviously, he protected a child within the within the prison, within the pit. He was excommunicated because obviously he was in love with her. I love that scene. I totally forgot this part. Just at the end when obviously Batman is being stabbed in the back, literally and figuratively,
yeah.
Literally and figuratively, and they're telling the story of you know, the little kid
Talia jumping up the walls,
Talia jumping up the walls kind of thing.
Played by young Joey King.
Yeah, I do not know who that is.
Joey King. Have you ever seen The Kissing Booth?
No.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, and he's telling the story, and I'm there seeing this big man crying tears, and I was like, Isn't that lovely? Yeah. And I was like,
Nah.
oh yeah, like he has like quite a lot of like redeemable qualities to him. And he I don't know, was trying to do the right thing in his eyes. So I would kind of say that by Bane, do you know?
I think it's something that people don't consider. Yeah, I wouldn't have really considered that.
Yeah.
What about Christian Bale as Batman then? Are you satisfied with him as a Batman? Because I only learned this year that like Jake Gyllenhaal almost got it and like has said since that he would do it. It would be a huge honour. But I think it was someone on the team, a producer or someone apparently like for that producer or whoever, someone working on the film, Jake Gyllenhaal was their number one pick and then it just ended up obviously being Christian Bale as we know now. What do you reckon? How does Christian Bale land for you? And I suppose secondly, could you ever imagine Jake Gyllenhaal in any of these roles or even as Batman in general?
Okay, I might take them the other way around. Like
Okay.
I love Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
It's just like something about his face doesn't seem right for Batman.
Is he a bit pretty?
Yeah, maybe.
No, I will say brilliant prisoners. And like that's a very dark role. I think his time is past. If he was gonna do it, I think it's kind of past now, unfortunately.
I think he would give me like Robert Pattinson vibes as Batman. And I just didn't think he does like he did the thing and he wore the suit. So Robert Pattinson is the new Batman.
Yes.
But I'm like, you just don't go away, you little Twilight weirdo. Like, don't.
See.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I did kind of like the new Batman.
Oh, I really liked it, but
Robert Pattinson isn't as convincing for you.
No, it's like, what are you doing here? You don't belong here.
Are you lost? Little boy, are you lost? Now, I will say, every time he took the mask off and it looked like he had like eyeliner under his, I was like, lads, come on. We're really hammering home the emo-ness of it all.
Yeah, and I feel the same would be with like Jake Gyllenhaal. Based on like the things I've seen him, like, like Southpaw and all the type of like different type of movies where he plays like very like emotional characters as such. It's almost like he might have like too much of an emotional range. I'm like, I wouldn't believe that he's a psychopath because like that's what Batman is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was
that's
like,
true.
like what are you, like, you're in the wrong movie, mate. Like, go back to Brokeback Mountain or something.
He kind of gives too much away in his face. Like, he's a very good empathetic actor and that you can see it all over his face.
Yeah.
Whereas like what's good about Christian Bale is he's really good at looking like completely broken and numb and like embodying that Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I'm an orphan. It doesn't matter that I'm a millionaire. I absolutely fucking hate my life. I just wish someone loved me. I hate having to solve crime. You know what I mean? Like he just permanently looks a bit fucking miserable, but not too sad.
Exactly.
Whereas I do feel like Jake Gyllenhaal might be bawling all the time.
Yeah, and like Ben Affleck almost had that look as well. Again, he was a shy Batman.
I forgot about
Ben
Affleck.
He looked the part.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, just the entire movie I was watching, I was like just like pissed myself laughing. I loved Christian Bale as Batman, to answer you. But whenever he put on the suit and he did that like Batman voice, I'm just there like, why are you talking like it's like, why are you talking
The
like
voice
this?
is insane. I fucking hate it. No one in that city has a fucking brain cell between them to figure out that it's fucking you, Bruce Wayne. You putting on a fucking different voice actually isn't going to make a difference.
No, and it's like, how do you consistently like put on the voice? You have like a little mic in there or something, and then like the mask, the Batman mask is so stupid.
Where are they? That's
like,
my fave.
I feel like if you were wearing a Batman mask and I know you, I feel like I'd be able to figure out like it's you. I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because Batman have a fucking Cork accent.
Could you
You're like,
imagine?
wait a second.
Yeah, I just like, that kind of like, I don't know, slightly annoyed me a little bit. Just like when he was Batman and talking. It's just like, I was like, just be Batman and don't talk for some reason. But I think if we think back through all the Batmans in like recent history, yeah, I would say he's the best. Maybe best of a bad bunch, which might be a bit harsh, but I will say so, yeah.
We're going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back after this. Is there anything about The Dark Knight Rises that doesn't work for you? I will say it's quite a long film.
The Dark Knight Rises?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I was thinking about this, right? Sorry, not to discredit your point. It's quite a long film.
You can discredit my point. It's fine.
No, sorry. It's
I
like,
welcome healthy
you're
debate.
like, what about The Dark Knight do you not like? Sorry. Is it long? What is it? 2.5 hours?
2:45, I think.
Yeah. Isn't that the average length? I don't know.
It is now, and I kind of wish it wasn't. Look, and I will say at the same time, you have a big, expansive story that you need to finish. He spends 5 months down the fucking hole, which seems to be a critique of this film. I actually love it. I love that whole section. We already talked about the backbreaking part, him trying to scale the wall. Like, I actually quite enjoyed that, and I like the fact that, like, Gotham's going to shit, and we're seeing this time, and he needs to take that length of time away. Not an issue for me. But I know other people would argue that it's a very long film.
Yeah, and I think in this, it was also long in a sense of maybe for comparing against like kind of like modern superhero movies. When it's very long, there's quite considering amount of like different like fight scenes and action packed sequences. And I think for that kind of like maybe like hour in between, not that nothing happens, but nothing happens in the sense of like action. I think Batman doesn't show up for literally like half the movie.
Yeah.
But I also think that that's part of like the magic of Bane being like, he was such a good villain. They'd taken over the city. They literally broken Gotham. They trapped all the cops underneath the place. They put the fear of God into everyone. I just thought that showed, from my perspective, how much of an impact that Bane had. That he literally took out the main guy, took out Batman for like half the movie, and I think that speaks more to Bane and the character, if that kind of makes sense.
Like the football field scene is terrifying, like still to this, because it is like, it's terrorism, like it's a fellow with a mask doing it, like, you know what I mean? It's a fellow with a weird mask and a weird voice, but like it's like, regretfully, it's something that you could see happening in real life, like, and that kind of adds to the tension and the drama of it, like. But as you said, he does it so effortlessly, like sending all the cops like underground as well, like it's just
and there's so much kind of like viciousness and horribleness in that scene, because I one of my favorite, there's like two scenes that are like my favorite scenes in this, and one of them is that football field scene, but where he's like with the scientist, and he's like, what is this, a neutron bomb, and he's like, who's the only person in the world that could disarm it? Me. And then he kills him. I'm like, yes. Like, usually in any other like superhero movie, you'd be like, oh, let's put him like in a little cell and he can be freed later. He's like, no. Like, he's dead.
Yeah.
We're all screwed.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And I also really enjoyed the fact that, again, in this kind of like dead space in the middle of the film, they brought back Cillian Murphy.
Yes.
From the first movie.
Yeah.
And I was
This
like,
is Scarecrow.
Yeah, so like they're really consolidating all the important aspects. Again, this is why for me it's a better movie. They're consolidating on the other aspects of the full storyline, from like Batman Begins and the Dark Knight, sorry, and bringing it all together, in the sense of, you know, trying to also set up the fact that, you know, the big shock of the entire film, that the little girl from the pitch is Talia, you know, so long but important to. Let's put it this way: if it wasn't as long, people would have been like, "Well, that didn't make as much sense." I felt like this is one of like the very few trilogies. I'm not going to say there's no gaps in it, but I felt like the story was full.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I think you need that amount of space to do it, because it is like, it's very ambitious, even in terms of its scale. Like, it cost $230 million to make.
Yeah.
Like, Christopher Nolan was like, I need as much money as possible. Like, even with the scenes with the extras, you can tell like he wanted this to be such a monolithic, large scale production. Like, how do you do that in 90 minutes? You can't. You just can't. Or you can and you do it shit, like, which is not. And look, let's be honest, Christopher Nolan, not renowned for short movies. Like, it's just his style. Into. Yeah, exactly.
And I think also one actual aspect of this movie that we forgot to mention is Catwoman.
Selena Kyle, Anne Hathaway, thoughts, feelings?
Wow.
Wowee.
Like, wowee.
Wowee. Again, I feel like her character and her performance got a bit of flack at the time initially.
Did it?
I feel like people, or maybe it was the initial casting where I think people were like, I don't buy Anne Hathaway as Catwoman for whatever reason. I actually have no idea what that was based on, but like, enjoy being wrong, losers.
Yeah, like,
we love Annie in this household.
Yeah, obviously, like, gorgeous and the whole feline kind of like movement. But again, it leads into what we said about the villains and the heroes in the story. It's very like attainable. Do you know? She's just a very desperate person who's gotten herself in a corner that has very, very like specific set of skills. And even as you kind of go through the story, she's like, I have my morals, and my morals are that I have no morals in a sense, and I'm going to stick through it. And she pretty much stuck to her guns throughout the entire film until the very, very end, where she's like, all right, fine, like I'll save you. And for me, like after Bane, like her performance was probably like my favorite one.
Yeah.
And I also kind of like loved how they kind of like semi-teased us with a romance all through. All throughout. And I loved the scene at the very end, which I totally forgot about as well. I always thought like
Oh my God, I'll never forget seeing that end scene in the cinema and just being absolutely gagged to bits. I was like, wowie. They're on holidays, they're in love.
Yeah, but when
the wave across the restaurant. Oh, honestly, perfect.
It's so perfect. But I feel like I only noticed that in my most recent watch.
Oh my God, hardly.
No, I promise you. So I always thought the last scene was obviously Alfred in Paris. And he sees Christian. But I don't think for some reason, sorry, did I just call him Christian?
Christian, you're a good personal friend. Bruce, Christian, it's all the one.
But for some reason, I never looked at the woman he was with. I don't know.
That's so. You're like, fair play to him and his random brunette.
Yeah,
happy for him.
Yeah, and then like when I was watching it recently, I was like, oh my God, it's Catwoman, and I was like, yes. That's actually so bad. Why do you have me on this? I clearly pay zero attention.
Perfect.
To films.
Brilliant. Do you think there are too many characters? Because again, I do think that that's a criticism that's leveled at this film, that you've a lot of different kind of stories to track and they're kind of interwoven in such a way.
That's a difficult one. Like, I would say yes, in the sense of if you're just like looking at it from like the everyday person that's like not like kind of engrossed in that universe. And I think that's why the general consensus for people picking The Dark Knight over Dark Knight Rises, because it's the sense of The Dark Knight as a standalone film is amazing. You can just watch that standalone film.
And it is really only about Batman and Joker. Yeah.
And you don't need to have any context of watching the previous film or the next film. You can just watch that and be like, that was class. Whereas with this, although again, you could say there was too many characters in inverted commas, like there wasn't, because those characters were all relevant to the story that needs to be told. And if you didn't kind of like involve some of those characters, then you would have been hit with the other argument to be sense of like, oh, there's too many gaps in the story, or you didn't close off some of these loops, etc., etc. But like they went even like all the way till I can't remember his name now. The little henchman from the guy that the guy that tried to steal Wayne Enterprises from Bruce.
Yes, yeah.
I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name.
The very annoying fella that
Yeah.
gets like killed by Bane's like, think you have power over me or whatever. Fantastic scene, by the way. You know his little henchman?
Yeah.
That he gets sentenced to the ice.
He takes the fingerprints.
It takes
Yes,
like even to the sense of like really like closing off all those like small loops and storylines. I personally, if you're like engrossed in the universe, find all that like really like useful information. I'm like, oh yeah, I know what happens here. I know what happens here. There's literally nothing missing. There's no loops. Even all the way to the new commissioner, kind of like, his, for example, it's like his story doesn't really add anything to the overall outcome. But I thought it was a nice touch to be like, oh yeah, he was scared to come out and fight. Commissioner Gordon kind of like put the pressure on, be like, what's the story? Like, you're meant to be like kind of the police force. And he came out all the way at the end, stood up and still died. That added literally nothing to the story. And he could have been like one of the characters that could have been kind of like cut out really easily. But I thought that was like, for me anyways, that adds to the magic of the film. Be like, there's actually no loose ends, obvious loose ends here. And I'm quite happy with like how everyone kind of like met their end. Apart from Bane.
You would have liked to see Bane live.
No, not live, but like, why shoot him? That's shy. I know.
Poor Bane.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, you should just let Batman kill him or something. Just like let him like die at that point.
Yeah.
But it was just the fact that he just got like shot by a gun. I'm like,
Yeah, a bit fucking
Do you
pathetic
know?
in the end, like, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was like, mate, you're also wearing a bulletproof vest. Like, did that not do its job? Or that was always my
Yeah,
hope.
kind of embarrassing, like, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, what's the point? But I do want to kind of like talk about some of like the quotes
Yeah.
within the movie.
I was born in the darkness.
Honestly, right? That scene is if you were to like ask me of like my top 3 movie scenes ever, like
That's it.
that's
It's in
it.
there. Yeah.
It's like the quotes. I think the quotes in this film are like super iconic. I again remember watching back to the Joker kind of like films. I think I wrote some of them down, and I felt like the quotes in there were like a bit cheesy.
Okay,
Do you know
interesting.
what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like,
I get you, but I feel like some people would make the argument, a similar argument with The Dark Knight Rises.
really?
But I don't know if it's just because some people interpret Bane as being a bit naff. You know what I mean?
What does
because
naff mean?
Like, just a bit silly, like, just with regards to the voice and stuff.
Where are they? I want to
They're
talk to
not
them.
here, Femi. They're not here.
I wanna talk to them.
I'm on your side, but
No,
you know what I mean. He's a bit more. Bane is a bit more memeable in comparison to like the Joker. Now, again, I will say the elephant in the room. I feel like the Joker is like solidified in amber in this way because of obviously Heath Ledger's incredible performance, Heath Ledger's unfortunate death. So it's just become this thing that's like, I don't want to say it's without that it's uncriticisable, but at the same time I think people, and I think that's also why The Dark Knight Rises will always be unfairly compared to The Dark Knight, because that's the shadow that will permanently hang over it. Like, how do you step into the footsteps of someone who, number one, has killed this performance, is unrecognisable as this creepy fucking weirdo, and then it's his last living role because he's died. Like, you know, it's really tricky.
Yeah, it's very tricky, and that's maybe what I always try to do when I was kind of like analyze the performances. Obviously, such a tragic thing that happened to him, but if we were to almost like just look at if I was being very honest, I think I prefer Jackie Phoenix's Joker.
Okay.
Like his unhingedness to Heath Ledger's.
Yeah.
Personally, just in a sense of Jackie Phoenix gave me more of a feel of kind of like really like dark, gritty. One thing that I actually was very obvious to me when I was watching back The Dark Knight, although again Joker is fully unhinged, it's actually not a dark movie. Like, right, genuine feel like, as in like the Batman Begins, the one with Cillian Murphy, that was like a darker, dingier movie. Like even just from apart from like the storyline, just even from like the sense of like the scenery,
The aesthetics,
the aesthetics. Yeah, there's like a lot of like just everything just happened like in daytime, and he's there like walking around the hospital, kind of like semi unhinged. But I was like, oh, I don't know, like it wasn't. When I think of the Joker, I think of like really like dark, unhinged, horrible, sinister. Whereas I felt he was a bit. What's the word? Obviously, this is not criticizing his performance, by the way.
Yeah.
This is just more trying to maybe look at it a bit more like objectively as such, and objectively in the sense of kind of like the context of the 3 movies.
Yeah.
I just felt that he was a bit more. I don't know. He didn't get the. He got me with the kind of like unhingedness.
He doesn't fully get the aura for you.
Yeah, he didn't give me the aura. He didn't give me it was more like, I was like, oh my God, that's funny. He's really like in Batman's head. But it wasn't more like, oh my God, like he's this like villain not to be trifled with. Do you know? Whereas like other Jokers and other movies has given me that feeling, being like, oh my God, like this fella has Batman's number here, but are also like just a dirty, unhinged, horrible person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It was supposed to be, there was kind of some initial treatments, or like, I think studio executives, because obviously the Joker was so successful in The Dark Knight, they wanted the Riddler in the next movie, and they were originally looking at fucking Christopher Nolan's, one of his muses, Leonardo DiCaprio, as the Riddler. Can you imagine?
Could you imagine?
Can you imagine?
Could you imagine? But again, no, I'm sorry. He just gave me one of those faces.
He doesn't give I don't think, even from a like aesthetic perspective, he doesn't give superhero, and I don't think he wants to give superhero ever. Like, I think he obviously loves Christopher Nolan. They've worked together on there and loads of projects. But
although Riddler always felt like a little pretty boy villain.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And
Like,
Leo
he
can
always-
do little freak like as well, you know. But then you
he?
compare it to Paul Dano in the Batman, the definitive article, the Robert Pattinson one, and I'm like, he's a freak, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Big freak head on him, like, you know.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I'd love to see kind of like a modern take on the Batman in like Christopher Nolan's world, with kind of like Robin and the Riddler.
Yeah.
And all those guys come true. It'd be very interesting. Do you know what? The more, just after you said it around, the more and more I think about it. How old is Joseph Gordon-Levitt these days? Maybe like 30s, 40s?
How old is he? I'd
Yeah.
say he's early 40s,
Is
yeah.
is he like too old to go? I think he's...
Is he too old to do Batman now?
Not to come back and do Robin, yeah.
To come back and do Robin? I kind of think so. And I just think the thing with The Dark Knight Rises as well is like Christopher Nolan actually kind of like was really hesitant about doing like a third one, but agreed after developing a story with his brother that he felt would conclude this series in a satisfactory way. He doesn't strike me as someone who'd be absolutely gagging to revisit this story unless they were like, here's $800 million. You just have to use like half of it on Batman and then you can do whatever the fuck you want with the other half. We don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think maybe given the success of the trilogy and how well critically acclaimed, like pretty much like all of them are. I know we're comparing them here, but like they're all like quite critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any need to.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Though I would like a live action Robin in some way. I wonder if they're going to do it with the Batman. Even though it seems like the next movie is the Joker, Barry Keoghan.
Okay, to be fair now, that looks really good.
Because Barry Keoghan has a big freak head in him as well. It's going to be great.
That looks so good.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, that again, obviously I'll be watching it while giving Robert Pattinson like very much. I think it's the eyeliner.
It is. I understand that. It's very
it gives
evil,
vampire vibes. I was like, well, I've
Yeah.
seen you as a vampire before, so like, can you like stop doing that, please?
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is 43 years old.
Okay.
43.
Yeah, I still think he's a bit too old for Robin now at this point.
Are we being ageist here?
Maybe. I mean, well, I'm just speaking from the perspective of the industry. I'm not saying I agree with that.
attacking you.
You. Gotcha. We got her. We got her. I wanted to read, because obviously I mentioned like a lot of the reviews are positive, but there were some negative ones, and I wanted to read this one from CNN. I think this is Tom Charity. He said the film was a disappointingly clunky and bombastic conclusion to a superior series and called it Nolan's worst film. Anthony Lane of The New Yorker then says that the story is dense, overlong and studded with references, though it'll make sense only to those intimate with Nolan's previous excursions into Batman.
Yeah, but that's the point. What's her name?
Who is that person? Anthony Lane.
Anthony Lane, bro. That's the point.
Well, yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with that review. Like, you're coming to a third film in a trilogy, and what? Like, you know what I mean?
And I think that's what's unfair. I think when I'm looking at the list and I'm seeing Dark Knight Rises put at the bottom, I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? And I think, for me, anyways, Bane is literally one of the best supervillains we've seen across all the superhero movies. Like, by a country mile.
Yeah. But what about that first review then about being disappointingly clunky and bombastic conclusion to a superior series? And Nolan's worst film, despite it is still his highest grossing film, which I cannot believe. I thought Oppenheimer overtook it. Yeah, so it's over the 1 billion mark at this point.
Rises.
It was the 7th highest grossing film of all time at the time, I think. It's now number 35. It's the highest grossing Batman film, and it's still Christopher Nolan's highest grossing movie.
Well,
crazy.
I rest my case.
You were like, the numbers.
The numbers don't lie.
They don't lie.
The numbers don't lie.
They don't lie.
I didn't even know that. I genuinely rest my case. I just think that, again, sorry, what was the first review again? It was clunky. Sorry, you were saying?
Tom Charity. Yeah, disappointingly clunky and a bombastic conclusion to a superior series.
It's clunky if you didn't watch, if you weren't invested in the other two movies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's clunky if you're not invested in, or you like superhero movies. But if you're like into that, like, honestly, again, from my perspective, it is so complete. I'll take on the argument or like the point that, you know, there's a bit of kind of like dead space in the middle of the film without action, but that is fulfilling. That is like closing off different storylines that makes the movie and the trilogy complete. So that's the only thing I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. But any kind of like criticism launched at like Bane, Batman, maybe like around like too many characters as such, I'm just not having it. And as you just said, like the numbers don't lie.
The numbers don't lie, indeed. Femi, it's been a pleasure. I suppose before I let you go, like, what's your elevator pitch for anyone who is still unconvinced as to why this is the superior Batman in the Christopher Nolan trilogy? Maybe the superior Batman overall? Question mark. What's your argument?
There's no argument. I'm just gonna direct them.
Well, first of all, there's no argument. It is.
I think if you go back to the scene in The Dark Knight Rises and the little guy, I can't remember his name, who's trying to take over the board, is like screaming at Bane, being like, I paid you a small fortune, this and that. And Bane just stands over him and is like, put his hands on his shoulders, like, you know, you think this gives you power over me? Kind of like imposing and scary. That's how I feel to anyone who says that The Dark Knight Rises isn't a superior movie. It just is. I think that it's very complete in terms of like storyline and in the context of the trilogy. It has an amazing villain who literally breaks the hero into pieces. The hero has to fully reimagine who he is. Batman has to literally reimagine who he is in the sense of stop channeling everything through anger and actually conquer the fear that made him Batman in the first place. He literally made Batman reinvent himself. Like, that's insane. Like, can we sit on that for a second? Like, the Joker didn't do that. Do you know? And yes, Heath Ledger had an amazing performance. 100%. If you want to say like which is a better performance, like Heath Ledger or Tom Hardy, obviously Heath Ledger. But in terms of like the movie, the context of it, way superior movie. One last point though that I feel like we didn't fully address.
Okay.
Tom Hardy is really short.
Yeah.
Why is he tall?
The magic of cinema.
Because I was watching, I was like, oh, yeah, just the angles are a bit weird in this, and et cetera, et cetera. But like, that just got me. And I was like, oh, did they get like really short actors? And I was meant to Google Christian Bale's height. Actually, I think he's quite short as well.
Yeah, he's not very tall. I'd say they're the two of them just on apple boxes constantly. And then Christopher Nolan was just like erasing them, face tuning them out in post.
Sorry, but that made me laugh a lot. And I was like, yeah, they're making this guy look like 6'5", but I know he's like 5'9". But
Shout out to the Short Kings.
Nothing against the Short Kings. Am I a Short King?
How tall are you?
Just under 6 foot.
No, not really. Short King would be like under 5'5".
Wait, whoa, okay, no, I'm not a Short King, no.
Not you. You just wanted an excuse on a podcast to say that you were just under 6 foot.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
I did not wink at the camera.
Wait, actually, sorry. Before I let you go as well, anyone else you'd like to see take the mantle as Batman? And I suppose maybe say they do another Batman film and there's the possibility floated of we're going to do Bane again as the villain. Who would you like to see? Yeah.
Who would I like to see as the villain Bane? Oh, do you know who I think would be good as the Batman? Oh, I'm gonna like mess up his name now because I can't remember what he's in. Oh no. I can't remember his name now. He's in. Do you know that new movie, The Bike Riders? It was called. Tom Hardy's in it as well. You know Ish. You know the guy who plays Ish.
Yeah.
But there's another guy that looks exactly like him. No, one second. I'm gonna find out.
One of the Skarsgårds.
Not the, but they look similar. What's his name? Bikers. What's that? Is it Bikers? Tom Hardy movie. It was at the Cork Film Festival.
You're so cultured. You're way more cultured than me.
So it's called Bike Riders.
Okay.
There we go. And his name is Austin Butler.
I can't believe your reference for Austin Butler was a fucking movie that you saw at the Cork Film Festival and not fucking Elvis.
Sorry, he played Elvis.
Femi, you're crazy. You're an
I'm
insane
cultured,
person.
not crazy.
Austin Butler's Batman.
Yeah.
I could see it.
I could see it as
it
well.
and I support
think he has that kind of like chin. I would love to see his chin for an entire movie. It's gorgeous.
Give me a look at his chin.
Yeah.
For 90 plus minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. What about Bane then?
That's a really
I probably would have
tough
said
one.
Barry if you just made him eat like 10 eggs a day for 6 months. But also now he's doing he suits better as Joker. Like.
Yeah, he gives like little boyo vibes.
Yeah.
He's not like angry. He's like, yeah.
You
one of the
need
lads. It's a tough
It's
one.
a tough question because Tom Hardy had that balance of being like kind of a little alt weirdo as well, but like still quite strong and like broad.
Yeah,
if you're talking about physicality.
But it's also kind of like...
Because we're kind of in an era of like string bean actors, you know, that kind of way. We're in a beefcake drought, shall we say, and we're in an absolute flood of men who look like pencils, you know what I mean?
No, first of all, I feel like it has to be like an English actor.
Okay.
Bane has to have like an English accent, and it has to be someone like really like menacing.
Let's think English then. Who
I've
isn't?
literally gone blank.
Do you know what?
What about Alan Richardson?
I don't know who that is.
He's from Reacher, the series.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's huge.
Counterpoint, Aaron Taylor-Johnson.
Yeah.
Oh my God, is that guy from Kick-Ass?
Yes.
Yes.
Already in a Nolan film, like was in Tenet. Once again, built like a brick shit house.
No,
but he's probably Bond, so he won't do it.
No,
But
Aaron is like, I can see that.
and he's British.
I can
you know?
see that. Like he needs to work a bit more to convince him he's menacing, but like I could see it. Like have him bald.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for him.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I totally forgot he even existed as an actor. He's probably still quite young as well, is he?
There you go. Yeah, he's in his 30s, so we have time. We
Okay,
have time.
I'm gonna
I
bring
say
up-
as if we're casting it, but
I'm gonna ring up Christopher after this and I'm
please,
like, here.
please do, please.
Here's 800 million from your back pocket.
Tell him I was asking
So did I.
from the donor that's inevitably listening to this episode of the podcast. We appreciate it. Femi, this has been such a pleasure. You can come back at any point. You had a couple of other suggestions, so the door's always open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where can people find you should they want to do that?
You probably don't.
Okay, perfect. Brilliant.
No, you can,
Femi's like, stay the fuck away from me.
you probably don't. You can find me on Instagram at Femi_Bankole. Do I use Twitter? No. Hinge? No, I'm joking.
You already said you were just under 6 foot. Like, that's enough. Like,
Sorry, I'm joking.
that's enough charity work for me today.
Sorry.
No, Femi, such a pleasure. I cannot wait to have you back. This was such a laugh. Thank you
you.
so much for joining me on Flop Culture.
Woo!
The Dark Knight Rises is available to stream on now with a cinema membership. Go enjoy your rewatch or first time watch, perhaps. A big thank you to Femi. I'll leave all of his links below, as well as links to where to follow Black and Irish. And a big thank you to you, my gorgeous listener, for listening. A reminder, you can get even more content on Patreon, including this week, a recap of The Idea of You, starring Anne Hathaway and Nicholas Galitzine on Prime Video, and the final 2 episodes of Fleabag with my good friend Owen Keane. You can also watch them on Prime Video should you want to catch up before these episodes. Myself and Cian Sullivan will also be reviewing the brand new Billie Eilish album, Hit Me Hard and Soft, and talking about how Taylor has been attempting to game the charts to continue her #1 success and potentially not let Billie get the #1. I'm not sure. We should know a little bit more about that by the time we record. So I'm excited to get into it. That's all over on Patreon. It's patreon.com/flopculture. There's a link in the show notes if you want to sign up there. You get 3 bonus episodes a month for €4.50. And we now actually also offer annual memberships. And you can avail of them at a 10% discount. So if that's something you want, if you cannot get enough of Flop Culture, it's all there. A huge shout out to some recent patrons. We've got Emma K, Eefs, Bippity, again, not sure that's your first name, but I respect you, Aideen and Ashling. Huge thanks for coming over there, and we've been having great chats, and I really appreciate it. Please do continue to leave your ratings. It helps people find the podcast. 4 or 5 stars, wherever you are. I do appreciate it. As I said, we're nearly at 300 on Spotify, which is cuckoo bananas, and I enjoy it a lot. And YouTube. Some of the episodes are available to watch on YouTube, including this one. So head over and watch right now, should you fancy. And we're on social media. It's @flopculture_pod. I'll be back next week. Until then, bye-bye.